Good, how you doing?
You guys squeezing me in here? Yeah, let's see. Somebody had a press conference at 12, and then there's another one at 2:30, right? Yeah, I got it. I got it. Well, first of all, this has been a great month for Kansas athletics. I think that before we get started with football, I'd be remiss if I didn't, just look back and reflect on what's happened here in the last month. The obvious with the men's hoops team, going to the Final Four, which, how exciting is that? So I not only kudos to Coach Self and the staff and the team, but also, good luck, and anything can happen down there in New Orleans, and I hope that it turns out just wonderful for our team, our university, our fans. That would be a great thing. Secondly, let's not look back on, not too long ago, Carolyn Davis. She blows out her knee. By the way, I just talked to her 10 minutes ago. Okay, so she had surgery this morning, and she's doing great. She's all drugged up, so she won't remember talking to me. But I just talked to her about 10 minutes ago, and she gets hurt, and the basketball team looks like it's going to go in the tank, and things aren't going very well. They make the tournament. Next thing you know, they're making noise. They're doing damage. They're making it to the Sweet 16, and here it is halftime. And they're the lead with a chance going to the Elite Eight. So congratulations to them too. And last but not least, if you look at the last month, you can't forget about the women's track team. Being in their indoor track, second in the country, 2 national champs. So if you look at the big picture right now, before we even get started with football, I think it's important to realize that football is just one part of the big picture here at Kansas Athletics, and now it just happens to be a part that becomes, goes into a whole nother phase. And we just finished our winter program, and as promised when I first got here, I'm not right very often, but I can tell you that the promise I made about the off season not being very good, not being very good for the players, it wasn't very good for the players. It was a pretty grueling winter program that Coach Hosopo and the staff ran. I think that it was very easy to get the players to buy in because they didn't have an alternative. It was either buy in or quit. They were your 2 choices. So I think we're pretty happy with how that's turned out. Now, when you got those heights and weights, sorry, but they're the real ones. Okay. So when you see those heights and weights, that's the heights and weights. Okay, that's the weights that we took last week. So there's no fictitious, 150-pound guy that's showing 172, or some lineman that shows 250 that's 250 that you're reading 285. Those weights you have down there are their weights, and those heights are barefooted, not with shoes on. So you might have some guys that shrunk 3 inches from the last measurement you have. Okay, but they are as close to accurate as I could possibly give you. What happens a lot of times when you get heights and weights, you start doing your analysis of, well, this guy gained 12 pounds, or why is this guy the same weight? Well, he might have dropped 20 or gained 20 from what he really was. Okay, so I have to just bear in mind, okay, when we give you these heights and weights, this is as they are right now. I mean, you'll notice some obvious things that I could point out to you. Like you'll see Kiva's over 270, and you'll see Lewandowski's over 270, and that's significant when you're playing the defensive line positions. You can't really play those positions very well at 240, especially if you're going to be in grinding type of positions that those guys end up being in. So there'll be some obvious weights that show up to you right there, but they are the most current statistics that we could give you. And like I said, I'm generally pleased with where we are with the off-season program. Our roster's kind of filling in nicely. Obviously we could use some our reinforcements that are coming here this summer. I'm looking forward to them getting here, but the best part about it is without them here, It's a great opportunity for a limited number of guys to get more reps to kind of, as I previously stated, state their claim to where they fall on the depth charts. The depth charts right now are very fluid. You'll notice that starting offensively, without me getting, this is going to basically be a Q&A, so you can ask me anything you want, but I'm just going to explain a couple things on the, one thing on the offensive depth chart and one thing on the defensive depth chart. On the offensive depth chart that you have, you'll notice an F position, and then you'll see multiple guys listed. For example, you'll see F21. Well, 21 is a personnel group where you got two backs and one tight end in the game. So therefore, the F position would be a fullback, would be a running back type of position. Okay, there's another F that would be 11. Okay, where there's only one back and one tight end. So that F position is now manned by a wide receiver. And then you'll see another F where it says F12, where F12 is one back and two tight ends. So that F is now a tight end. In this system, in this offensive system, personnel-wise, there's always an F on the field, but it could be a tight end, it could be a back, it could be a wide receiver, it could be two halfbacks out there. But there's always somebody playing that position, and it's one of the ways that you can get personnel substitutions, personnel mismatches, give you some, some additional ways to kind of screw up the defense. Speaking of defense, one more thing on the offense, you'll also see that I listed Y10. Okay, Y10 means there's one back and no tight ends on the field. Therefore, the guy who's playing the Y position would be a wide receiver. So that's why you'll see under the Y10, you'll see a couple of receivers listed down under the Y10. As far as the defense goes, you'll see that we listed that under as a 4-3 defense. We will be playing some odd and 4-3. When you guys talk about, is it a 43 defense or a 34 defense? Let me just take a brief mention to explain to you the mentality of what 34 defense really is. 34 is just a personnel group. It's not a defense. Okay, that's one of the biggest misnomers from people when they talk about defense. Okay, it's all how they align at the line of scrimmage. It's not what the personnel is on the field. So like when you watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play and they play a 34 defense, they never play a 34. They never play a true odd defense. An odd defense is when you have a nose tackle, two guys on the tackles, and two bubble linebackers on the guards. They never line up that way. They actually play an under. That's what they line up. They call what everyone in the league would call an under. So it's translated into a four-man front. There will be times in our defensive scheme that we will line up in an odd defense. In an odd defense, then we'll have a nose and two guys on the tackle and two bubble linebackers. So that will show up as part of our defensive philosophy. But basically, the majority of the time, okay, it translates into a four-man front defense. You'll see a strong end, a nose, okay, a tackle, and a rush end. Okay, the strong end is the guy who's normally lined up on the tackle on the tight end side. The rush end is normally the guy who's on the weak side. The nose is on the center. The three techniques on the weak side guard, and that's where we go from. Okay, you'll notice a couple of guys tweaked in positions. For example, Reynolds, who was as a defensive lineman, is a Sam linebacker. In this league, you need to get guys that can play in space. You need to get fast guys that can play in space. Okay, and one thing about that kid, even though he's listed second behind Bakari right now, is he is very fast. Okay, I don't know if he can play dead, but I know one thing, he can run. Okay, that's what I know at this point because I haven't seen him practice yet. Okay, I'm very pleased with the development, the weight development with a lot of our players, and that depth chart is based on what we've seen in the off season, realizing we haven't had a practice yet. There'll be 4 players that are limited in the spring. Okay, Bourbon, Williams and Young on the defensive line, and Mora, who was a backup wide receiver who has been moved to safety. Okay, he's not listed on your depth chart because he's not in the too deep at the position. But he's the only guy who has flipped sides of the ball from offense to defense. Those four guys, in addition to the quarterbacks, will come out when you guys have your cameras out there and you're writing who's hurt, who's not. Those four guys will be in red jerseys along with the quarterbacks. None of them are out for the spring. They're all limited in the spring, and I'm going to limit their contact in particular. That's why they'll be in a red jersey. So when you go out to practice, there'll be 8 guys for the time being that'll be in red jerseys. Those 4 guys now, Bourbon and Williams and Young, are way ahead of where we thought that they would be, and they're chomping at the bit to get out of that red jersey, to get me to put them in a blue or white jersey right now, but I'm going to be very reluctant to do that and make sure I don't set them back. The last thing I'll say before we open it up, and everyone says, well, what's your goal for the spring? Well, when you first come into a program, rather than set specific goals, okay, I think you have to have one general goal, okay, and one general goal for any time you come in as a new coach, rather than sling arrows at the previous staff what you have to do is you have to break the team down and then build the team back up. And that's what the off season's been, and that's what the spring's going to be all over again. You're going to break them down and then you're going to build them up. One thing you need to do is you need to have the team playing with confidence by the time you play with games. Now's not the time I'm worrying about their confidence. I'm worrying about them doing things the right way. I'm worrying how practice the way we want them to practice. I'm worrying about being fundamentally sound. There's so many things that are football, cliches that come into play. But I will give you one little tidbit on offense and one little tidbit on defense, and then we'll go to Q&A. Let's start with defense. I think the most important thing that we need to do on defense, okay, is create a fundamentally sound defense. In this league, with as much playing in space as you go, if you can't play assignment football and get lined up right and be fundamentally sound, you have no chance. You can just cash it in because you're going to have no chance. You're going to have people running free all over the place. Okay, so I think that the most important thing is get them lined up right and then let them play so you can evaluate to see whether or not they're good enough or not. I think that's what you need to do. Too many coaches, when you first get started, they want to do 9 million different things, okay, because they're grab bagging. And I think that right now, Coach Campo and his staff, okay, have settled into the thing that we need to do is get them lined up right and let's see what they can do. Now, obviously, you're going to have to implement and increase your blitz packages as the spring goes on, because there's going to be teams that physically you don't match up very well with, and you're going to have to bring a lot of heat in the game. But that's going to be dictated by opponents. Right now, what we want to make sure we can do is get them lined up right and get them running to the football and making plays, and see whether or not they can or they can't. I mean, that's the first thing we have to do. Offensively, it's a little bit different. Okay, you remember now I have a quarterback who knows the system very well. It's an unusual situation when you're coming in new to have a quarterback that knows it that well. So we're going to put in as much as the offensive players can handle. So it's a little different than what the defense is doing. On the offense, I mean, we're going to put in a whole bunch of stuff, okay, but it's going to go in by how we mentally handle things as the spring goes on. I have an installation schedule right till April 28th. Okay, everything that's going in every day. Okay, every practice has already been, every schedule is already done. It's not like what are we going to do later, but what we do is leave huge holes throughout the spring for how much can we handle. And the more we can handle, the more we do. One thing that helps is when you have a quarterback that knows the system, he can help push things along. But let's say, for example, okay, the offensive line can't handle, more than 6 protections. Well, then you only use 6 protections. Why put in a 7th protection if we can't handle more than 6? Okay, so we'll see as the spring goes on how that goes, but I think that having Dane here gives us a big jump start on offense versus defense. Once again, to reiterate on defense, getting lined up right, being fundamentally sound and running to the football. And then on offense, as much as they can handle, based on the fact that I already know the quarterback knows the offense, it's how quickly the peripheral players can handle, the installation as we go along, and that's where we'll see where we are. So on that note, unlike other times where I've done all the talking, and the rest of you basically had to listen, I don't want to bore you today. So it's opening day. I mean, we got the men's basketball players at 2:30. All right, so I figured I'd open it up to Q&A, and everything's fair game. Everything's fair game right here. And, on Thursday, you can get the offensive players and staff. But, sir,
Coach, what is your approach to this team? What do you know about this team now that you didn't know before you got here?
I think that their confidence was very low when I got here. Now, when you go 2-10, that's almost a rhetorical statement. But their confidence was low. And I think when your confidence is low, a lot of times, your carrying level, goes down exponentially. And I think that those two things have risen significantly. I think they're much more confident, and they certainly care. And I think that anytime you have a hard-working team that cares, okay, you have a chance. Okay, but it doesn't do any good if they don't have any belief that they have a chance. And I've been using this example of our men's basketball team, all the time. So take a look at this, fellas. Take a look at this group right here. Okay, look at what they're doing. I mean, what better example than I mean? They can look at it every day. All they got to do is watch our team play every day. It's been a perfect example for them, even though it's a different sport.
How much have you gone back and watched film and evaluated these guys? None?
No, and I won't. I will not. I don't care what they did. I'm going by what I see. Now, what I will do is evaluate our opponents. And I'm sure when I'm evaluating our opponents, I'll say, what the hell are we doing? Okay, but with that being said, I've never done it before, and I'm not doing it now.
Can you talk? Oh,
sorry. I'll come right back. We have plenty of time.
No
I'm
problem.
not going anywhere.
You raised the issue about the other sports having success here on campus. As you guys get started now in developing your program, could you discuss the role that football plays in the health of the overall athletic scene at the university and what you guys need to get accomplished here?
Well, can I give a practical answer?
Sure.
Practical answer is we win more games, more people go, you raise more money, and it helps the whole program. And that's as practical as I want 50,000 people there every week. Okay, if by the middle of the season, you're one end. Okay, and now it's 40,000, now it's 30,000, now it's 20,000. How am I helping the rest of the program? So the best way you can do it is win and be competitive. And at the end of the day, everyone's rooting for every sport. Okay, but football is a money-making sport. It's a revenue-driven sport, and I think it's really important to put a competitive product out there so that people want to come and watch you play. Sorry for being so practical.
Different coaches put different emphasis on the spring game itself. Some would like to see big crowds, some don't care. What do you want to get out of the spring game, and would you like to see a big crowd?
First of all, I always like big crowds. I love every seat in the place taken. I mean, I tried to do a couple little things to help encourage that. That came real close. Okay, that would have helped. But I think that let's hope for a beautiful day. Let's hope that the reports from the reporters out of the spring are more on the positive nature, which get people intrigued enough to come watch you play. But at the end of the day, what are the two things that people really want to see? Can the defense stop anybody? And what's going on with Christ? Okay, well, we can wrap it up right now if you want to. That's what everyone wants to know, right? Okay, can the defense stop anybody? And if this quarterback is really, really good, every player around him is going to be that much better. And really, at the end of the spring, we have to have some answers on that. And I'd like to think that our defense is going to be much improved, and I think that Chris will take care of himself.
Speaking on that quarterback spot, Heaps is as the #2 guy. Obviously, he's not eligible to play next year. Your thoughts on whomever going to back up him?
Right now, Heaps in the spring, as if I'm using him as if he's getting ready to play. Because when we get to the summertime, I can't do that anymore. I mean, Heaps is leaps and bounds ahead of the other quarterbacks in the program. It's not close. Okay, now, so with that being said, how am I going to get him ready to play here in the program, knowing that he can't play in the games next year? And really, how can I, as you're getting your team ready to play games in the summertime, how many reps can you really give him? So I'm treating him as if he's getting ready to play this year, and Michael and Blake and those guys will get some time. But the number one thing I'm worrying about right now is getting the frontline guys ready to go. And I think we'll have the quarterback position taken care of between Michael and Blake, and and the young man who's Turner who's coming in yet. And I also have my reserve plan already on our team starting at X. Okay, so it isn't like I haven't covered that one too. I mean, so we have a lot of options right here. But right now, this has got to be the time that Jake gets his time, because he doesn't have time once we get to the summer.
Can you talk, is there any update on Justin and how you're approaching him?
We might hear, I can't say a good chance, because with the NCAA you never know what the good chances are. But from what I understand through our compliance department that's done a wonderful job of staying on top of this, is the caseworker in charge of Justin told us yesterday that his case is going to be presented before the caseworker leaves out of the office for Thursday. So yes, today, tomorrow, I'm assuming that if what the caseworker said is taking place, there's a chance we can hear something this week. Because once they have all the information, which they have all the information, now it's presented and they say yes or no. Well, this isn't like they have a month-long tribunal. I mean, they hear the information and they make a decision. So I'm hoping to hear something this week, and I'm hoping for this month to continue being good.
Can you talk about the new transfers you picked up in the last month?
Give me a particular. And
Oswald Sterling.
I think that it's really, really important to get big muchachos, okay, that can play up front. And we were kind of a little lucky with him. You're not supposed to find guys like that, that are on the street after signing day. But he had some offers, and his coach encouraged him not to sign the offers, because he thought that he was much better than where he was, and that when teams had a chance to come back and take a look at him, there'd be some interest. And it just so happened that we got involved right when about a half dozen other big-time schools all got involved at the same time, and because we were kind of first to strike, that's the reason why it ended up turning out that way. So I'm very happy to have him. Anyone else while you're there? You good there?
What about Tevin Shaw?
Here's another guy who things just, he got caught in one of those numbers crunches with another university. I grew up 2 miles from his house. I'm friends with his high school coach. I literally, he grew up in Piscataway, I grew up in Middlesex, as the next town. And when I found that he was on the street, when he was on the street, we called up and we got him out here. This kid was one of the best players in New Jersey on offense and defense. He was one of the best safeties in the state, and he was also one of the best running backs in the state. In the state finals, he plays against Elizabeth, who's one of the state powers, and rushes for 300 yards in the state championship game. I mean, you're not supposed to find people like that, you know, at the end. So we're very fortunate for him to be available.
What is it about Gavin Howard that makes him first string guy? All those other guys seem to have experience, but you haven't seen him yet. Why is he first string?
Well, who has experience?
All the other four offensive linemen.
You got to put somebody as the fifth guy,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Well, he's the fifth.
That's it.
No, well, he's the guy who's got some. He's the guy who has at least some experience.
Okay.
You know, versus all those freshmen from last year. So I think that's gonna, you know, that's kind of open game. You know, that's not a finite thing, but based off of what we're seeing right now, you know, he would hold a slight edge leading into it, and then, you know, we're going to practice him both at right guard and right tackle because he has the girth to play right tackle as well as play right guard. So he's going to get a look at both positions.
Coach Campos said that when he first started looking at coming here, that he asked you where you were at the quarterback position. Just kind of wondering how much of a difference can having a solid guy at that position really change a program between one year and the next?
This is a rhetorical question.
Kind of.
First of all, it isn't just having a good quarterback. A good quarterback in a new system that knows the system, that knows your ways, that knows you, that was recruited by you, knows you, your wife, knows your kids, knows everything about you. Okay, when the team has something to say, you know, they have a sounding board to go to. It's not just him as a player. You know, he makes all the other offensive players better. He makes every one of them will tell you the same thing. And I'll tell you, when you know when a kid is special, when he comes in and the day he walks in, the players look at him as a leader, and he hasn't done anything yet. That's when you know you got something special.
You talked you've mentioned several times about how hard you've been on these guys up to this point, and how hard you've worked them in training room, and how hard you're going to work them in spring. Now, with a large chunk of your roster still not on campus yet, and presumably a lot of those going to be pushing for starting jobs, how do you balance what the guys you have and the work they've already done with the guys that are coming in and, you know, needing to kind of reestablish that as
well? That's true
with
in some positions. Some positions it really, you know, not an issue at all. You know, there are some positions where we expect some help. You know, look, I could state the obvious, say that we're expecting help on the defensive line. I mean, we all can see that we expect some help from the defensive line. Look at, you know, Williams and Young; they're going to be limited. Okay, if you look at the group right now, you know we got reinforcements coming. That's going to, the whole perspective of the defensive line is going to change in the summer. Okay, but I think, you know, when the other players come in at most of the positions, you know, they're battling to get to 2 first before they can get to 1. I mean, other than that, but you know, they're gonna have some work to do. I mean, there's guys. I'm counting that these guys going through the spring are gonna be fighting to make it tough. You're gonna have to beat them out. We're not gonna just walk in the door and just start replacing people just for the sake of replacing them. You're gonna have to earn it. I mean, I don't hand it really to anybody.
Do you think these guys that are already in camp have a jump on them then?
If they don't, then it's their own fault. I mean, if you don't come out of the spring with an understanding of the offense and the defense and have a jump start over anyone else coming in, it's your own fault. I mean, you got no one else to blame. I mean, you got plenty of time. You got 15 practices. I mean, you got 15 practices and you got a whole month. I mean, it's, you know, you should have a big advantage. You should have a big advantage.
Aside from the confidence level, you know, what has been the biggest challenge for you and your staff at getting these guys built back up, like you said, is your goal?
Well, the first thing we had to do, like I told you, come February, I had to learn who they were. I didn't even know who they were. I mean, you have to know who they are. You have to know, you know, like, everyone's different. You know, that you know, everyone thinks that as a football coach, you just talk to everyone one way. That's true only when you're talking to the whole team. The only time you talk to them all the same way is when it's in one group setting. But every single person is different. Every single person. What makes you tick might not be the same as what makes him tick. What might not be the same as what makes him tick. And I think from the head coach to all the position coaches, I think that that's an important thing. Because what you now have to do is how you can make that guy overachieve. You have to help press those buttons to get them to overachieve, to play past what they thought that they were capable of. And that's what this spring has really been about. I mean, probably the most grueling thing I did this spring was have interviews with every player. Now think about it now. Every player, walk on to a fifth-year senior, you know, you have an individual, you know, interview with each one of them. You know, it was a time-consuming, laborious task. But now when a kid walks into me, I know where he's from. I know what his family situation is. I know if he's in a serious relationship. But you know, once things happen, you know, there's things you need to know. There's insight you need to have, or else you can't make, you know, proper value judgments.
Coach, you mentioned the rigors of the off-season program in the weight room, but you made it clear that academics are a real point of emphasis for you. How have the players responded in the classroom since you've been here?
Well, I can tell you with a smile on my face that coming into the Friday before spring break, we had not missed 5 classes from the entire team. Because every time somebody missed, it was horrible. And I'm known to use peer pressure as well. So to have all your teammates there and to be totally embarrassed for blowing off class, it's a very good teaching tool. That's before they have to go at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday with Hosopo one-on-one. You really don't want to do that. You really don't want to do that. So, you know, I think that it all starts. Look, everyone knows when you go to college, there's 2 major things that have to happen. You have to go to class, and you have to use academic support. If you do those 2 things, you should be able to thrive in college. So if you don't do those 2 things, okay, then there's a chance that something bad could happen. So what can I do? I use as a deterrent, not going to class, and a deterrent for them not using academic support. And I'm expecting that to show huge benefits come middle of May.
Care to shed any light on what those specific deterrents might be? The peer pressure?
Softball, Saturday morning, 6 o'clock. That's all I can say. You really don't want that one. You really don't. You really don't want that one. You don't want to be there. I don't want to be around Hosopo anytime, but 6 o'clock Saturday morning, when he doesn't have to be here, it's really not good.
Do you encourage that they've turned it around discipline-wise in the classroom, so it would stand to reason that these kids are capable of turning around their discipline on the field?
Well, I would be discouraged at myself if the first part didn't happen. I mean, I would be very disappointed. I would think that the people in academics in this university, and I've already gotten feedback from several people that they've seen a change in mentality. It's far from perfect now. Let me say, we don't have a bunch of tin soldiers that everything is perfect. You know, I still have to get on them for this class or that class, or starting to drowse off and things like that. I get all those reports and they're all addressed. But you'd have to think that if they can do this, well, why can't they do that? And I'm looking at just like you. I'm looking at a direct correlation. If we can get that fixed, then we can get that fixed. And I'm counting on that being the case.
Coach, do you have any physical tests that the players have to pass in order to play for you, or can you just tell when they're in shape? Some coaches you have to do, run so fast as a running back, do so much. Do you have anything like that, or what's your philosophy?
It's actually the number of gassers that Scott runs them on. You're better to run long strides for a time, okay, than sprints for a time. because long strides for a time really is a true test of conditioning. I think that the most important thing was we really wrapped it up the Friday before spring break, and the Monday after spring break was just to make sure that if they had a good time at spring break, we wanted to make sure that they had a good run in, so that you don't come out and pull a bunch of hammies, first rattle out of the box. But that's all run through the strength and conditioning program. I don't come out here and start running 40s and all that other stuff. We get going and play football.
You talked about Hawkinson and Zlatnik moving from the right side of the line to the left side.
Well, first of all, Hawkinson has played both the left side and the right side, and I think that you better take your best tackle and put him on the left side if you have a right-handed quarterback. If you have a left-handed quarterback, you take your best tackle and you put him on the right side. And right now, he's clearly our best tackle. Okay, in our scheme, you really spend more time helping one guard than another guard. Okay, in all your protections. And the guard that gets helped more in our scheme is the right guard. So therefore, what you want to do is you want to put, who you perceive to be your best guard over at the left guard. Also, it gives you a power side of the line of scrimmage, where now they have to decide, well, okay, are we just going to overload this side over here with all these seniors? Okay, or are we going to, try to balance it up and worry about the other side? Okay, so that's really the mentality that went involved with putting those guys. And Zlatnik kind of likes being over there with Tanner, by the way. He gets into a comfort zone. He's like lost if he's not over there, over there with Tanner. So he's feeling a lot better.
Coach, you've had some time to kind of get your bearings around the city of Lawrence. I mean, can you give your initial comments about the town and what stuck out to you?
I would love to not be the football coach on Saturday afternoon, Saturday about 7:40, and be hanging out on Mass Street, to tell you the truth. That's what I love to do. But unfortunately I am, so therefore I won't be there. Okay, but just watching that, watching that on video after that basketball game, because we're all jacked, basketball, and watching those things right there, I'm saying, that was pretty fun to watch. And I hope there's more fun yet to come. I hope there's more fun yet to come. But that alone, I really settled in nicely. Got a church I'm used to going to. They're shocked every time they see me. But I'm actually a regular. I get to stare down. Every time I walk in there, like, am I not allowed to pray? Sorry. But, I get it in the grocery store, because for the semester my kid's living with me, so unfortunately I'm doing a little cooking, so I walk in the grocery store, I get to stare down, but the people have been absolutely wonderful.
Sorry.
I mean, they've been wonderful. I mean, I haven't had one person that hasn't come up. And every once in a while you say, well, you're going to win 10, and you say you're going to buy my groceries, but for the most part, the people have been great. I mean, I couldn't be happier about where we are right now, and obviously now it's football season. I even Twitter, and it's obviously my broken English that I actually do it myself. But I even said this morning that, I think everyone would wish that football season would start a week later so we can make sure basketball was wrapped up here before it. But sorry, it's football season, so we got to go.
On that same token, how is balancing time in Lawrence and time in Florida with the family going?
I only go to Florida when we have time off. Like we had that, that's, my wife and I have kind of worked it out where, when I have a long weekend and don't have football, that's the only time I'll be in Florida. The rest of the time they come here. I get a job. And my job is to be the head football coach at Kansas. And my wife and I knew that going in, that there was going to be travel involved on both ends. And we've been able to work it out very well so far. So the next time I'll be traveling is right after your 6 o'clock viewing of our practice on the Thursday before the Kansas relays. I'm giving the team off that weekend so that we don't distract with the Kansas relays, so I'll fly out that weekend. But I'm here. So the only time I'm not here is when there's no time off. The rest of the time I'm here.
Anything else?